tensions between US-China has raised new fears of threat to Taiwan. Tensions are mounting between Beijing and Washington, as China pushes a record-breaking number of warplanes into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. The friction has raised renewed fears of the Chinese threat to Taiwan and its potential to draw in the West, particularly at a time when the United States and the United Kingdom are operating 3 aircraft carriers along with their destroyer escorts nearby in the Philippine Sea. Experts say China is playing the long game and is likely to continue upping the pressure on the self-governing island whose disputed political status has long been a fraught subject. We should think of China's approach to Taiwan not as a bifurcated decision between war and peace but instead a continuous pressure campaign that can take various lethal and non-lethal forms, said Eric Sayers, an expert in Asia-Pacific security policy at the American Enterprise Institute. Beijing can turn this pressure up or down as it chooses, but it is always occurring in a sustained manner towards the goal of reunification. 3 years after former President Donald Trump launched his trade war with China, indications are that President Joe Biden's administration is continuing his confrontational approach to the bilateral relationship, while rallying Western and regional allies around calling out Beijing for its flouting of international norms. The recent events come on the heels of a historic security pact between the US, UK and Australia to provide Canberra with the technology to build nuclear-powered submarines, a deal seen as an effort to counter China's growing influence in the region. And in September, the leaders of the 4 nations that make up the informal Quad grouping, the US, Japan, India and Australia, reiterated their commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific that is undaunted by coercion, a careful statement aimed indirectly at Beijing. Things are going badly for Beijing at the political level, said Elbridge Colby, a former Trump Pentagon official who is now a principal at the think tank the Marathon Initiative. Instead, they might decide to just use their increasing military capability. The 4-day barrage of sorties by fighter planes, bombers and surveillance planes could be primarily meant for domestic consumption, as they started on China's National Day. This is absolutely a wonderful opportunity to remind Taiwan of its proper place in the world, in Beijing's view, said Dean Chang, an expert on Chinese military capabilities at the Heritage Foundation. He noted that flying dozens of planes a day near the island forces the much smaller Taiwanese Air Force to respond. Over the weekend, Beijing criticized the US for sailing warships in international waters in the region and for selling Taiwan new weapons. But since China has no previous record of responding to US or allied warships sailing through the Taiwan Strait with incursions of this magnitude, this suggests that something else is going on, said Adrian Ang, research fellow at Singapore's S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Most likely the flights are a nationalistic show of force or harassment of Taiwan on the occasion of China's National Day on October 1st, or even extending possibly to the Golden Week holiday for propaganda purposes, he added. The incursions are nothing new, even if the size and frequency of the sorties have grown. China has already doubled the number of times it has flown its warplanes into Taiwan's air defense identification zone this year over 2020, hitting the 667 mark. In 2020, there were 380 such flights. Taiwan's air defense identification zone, which is unilaterally declared for reasons of military air defense, extends far beyond its national airspace. A handful of countries across the globe have their own self-declared air identification zones. This has become the new normal in the Taiwan Strait. This is part of the training for the PLA Air Force, and the naval air assets as well, said Bonnie Glaser, director of the Asia program at the German Marshall Fund.